Hi, welcome to Randy Talks Tech. I'm glad you're here. While you can develop Android-specific or iPhone-specific apps, I will show you how to use free Microsoft tools to write apps once that will work on both platforms. As a bonus, they will work on Windows and macOS too. So let's get started. In a few moments, I will show you how to use Microsoft Visual Studio 2022 Community Edition and .NET MAUI to create a cross-platform app. Visual Studio is an integrated development environment, or IDE, while .NET MAUI is a sort of translator that enables Microsoft .NET applications to run on multiple platforms. After I build the app, I will demonstrate how to run it with the Android smartphone emulator on a Windows computer. With Visual Studio and .NET MAUI, you can develop apps once that run on multiple platforms, but you also retain the ability to write platform-specific code to take advantage of the features each platform offers. Users can then run the app on their preferred platform. For this demonstration, I am using Windows 11, Visual Studio 2022 Community Edition, and .NET MAUI. The programming languages are C# and XAML, but in this case, Microsoft has provided skeletal code to produce a basic test app you can use to start your software development project. While Visual Studio for Mac can be used with .NET MAUI to write cross-platform apps, note that Microsoft will sunset Visual Studio for Mac in August 2024. Writing a cross-platform app can save money since you can develop it once and deploy it to multiple platforms. If you want to recreate what you see here, you will need a computer running Windows 11, any version of Visual Studio, and the .NET MAUI workload for Visual Studio. Let's go through the process of installing and setting up the tools to write cross-platform code. First, install any version of Visual Studio 2022 on Windows 11. As mentioned, I will use the free community version for this demo. It works well for my software development needs. The other versions might suit you better if you develop on a team. Next, add the .NET MAUI workload to Visual Studio using the Visual Studio installer application. Okay, here I am on the Visual Studio 2022 downloads page. It's located at visualstudio.microsoft.com/downloads. Again, I chose to install the free download, which is the Visual Studio 2022 Community Edition. Note that Professional and Enterprise editions are available here, as is Visual Studio for Mac. Once you hit free download, it'll probably take several minutes to download, and once it's downloaded, then install the application. After you install the app, let's move on to installing the .NET MAUI workload. Next, let's set up the .NET MAUI workload for Visual Studio. That sets up .NET MAUI in Visual Studio so you can actually write this cross-platform code. So go to the Start menu, you can search on Visual Studio, and then you'll see the Visual Studio installer. Okay, here we are. You only have several menu items. We'll go to Modify, and now you can see the workloads. Now I already have desktop and mobile installed, and this is where you install .NET MAUI, as you can see here. So I'm going to uncheck it and pretend I don't have it installed. Then to install it, simply click this. It will check the checkbox and ensure you have everything that's needed on the right side. So it includes .NET MAUI, .NET Framework, C# and Visual Basic, and so forth. Unless you're converting to .NET MAUI from Xamarin, you don't need that. I recommend IntelliCode, however. When you're ready, click Modify. It will tell you how much space is required. And it could take a few minutes to install that. So once you have that all installed, then you can open Visual Studio. So I always just go to Start Menu and type Visual Studio. There we are, 2022. Open the app. Okay, here we are in Visual Studio. First, we will create a new project, so you can leave all of this alone. And then we select the type of project we want. So you select a template, and I'll just search on .NET MAUI. There we are. We have several types, but we want to create a .NET MAUI app. So simply click on it and hit Next. And then you can name the app whatever you want. I guess I've created a couple test apps. And you do want, for simplicity, you do want to click on Place Solution and Project in same directory. I'll just take the default settings for the location here. Then next, you want to make sure you select .NET 7 Standard Term Support, or whatever the latest version is of .NET at the time you run your first, create your first .NET MAUI app. So now it has created the environment. If we look at the right side of the screen, in our Solution Explorer, we have some pre-written code. So we've got some CS or C#, and we also have some XAML code and several folders that contain other resources. Now, what we want to do is we want to select an Android emulator. So I want to debug, certainly, but I want to select a certain machine or emulator. Right now, the default is to build this app and run it on a Windows machine. So drop this down, and we want to ensure that we select first the framework. We want .NET 7.0 Android. Okay, so this will deploy that version of .NET to an Android device, but we also want to select an Android emulator. Note by default, once I select Android up here, it does select Pixel 5 API 33 Android 13.0. So we're good to go. Now you can build your application. I'm just going to rebuild the solution. Okay, the build finally finished, and when we see rebuild all succeeded at the bottom, that means everything's good. So we have 0 errors and 0 warnings. Typically in Visual Studio, if you have 1 or more errors, the program will not run. So anyway, to start up the emulator, and with the default app that Microsoft wrote for us with this code, simply click that green Start button. And within a few seconds, it should start the Android emulator. And open it on another screen, but I'll drag it in, and here it is. Looks pretty good. So you can click the button as many times as you want. And then to control it as you would a phone, you use these extended controls on the right side. So you can actually control the volume, you can tilt it however you wish. You can do a number of other things. But anyway, basically, just about anything you could do on a real physical Android, you can do within the emulator. Note that I can use the Android emulator using extended controls that emulate the controls available on a physical Android device. The Android emulator or the iOS simulator provides benefits for software developers, testers, and potential end users and customers. An emulator or simulator comes in handy, especially when a specific physical device is not available. It's also useful when it isn't appropriate to turn your personally owned device over to another person to let them try out an app. The ability to demonstrate an app on an emulator or simulator also scales well. Imagine using it to let a user try an app in a one-on-one setting. Also, one could be used to demonstrate apps in a conference room, in a Zoom meeting, or even in a worldwide virtual conference setting. In summary, Windows 11, Visual Studio 2022 Community, and .NET MAUI provide a toolkit to build cross-platform apps using the C# and XAML languages. With these tools, you can write your app once and deploy it to your customers' preferred platforms. You can also use an emulator or simulator to test an app, let potential users or customers try it out, or to give demos. Thanks for checking out how to get started with .NET MAUI. Please give a thumbs up if you found the video useful, and feel free to reply with questions. That's it for now from Randy Talks Tech. I'll see you next time.